get started. Just let me thank folks for coming out this evening. This, for us as a board, will be a little bit different this evening. We're trying a different format. And this was something that the board discussed at a prior retreat. Generally we have, as you know, we have a workshop meeting 1 week and then followed by a voting meeting. And in this particular case, we're combining 2 meetings into one, and I think the primary effort here is for efficiency, and also I hope to reduce the impact upon those people who on a board who are working families and are working professionals and have families, as well as our administrators who attend our meetings and are out several nights throughout the month. So we're trying to be, I think, considerate of those folks as well as being as efficient as we can be. So we'll start out with the workshop as we typically do. We'll go through the agenda. I think you'll see something a little bit different this time through as well, because we will be asking our central office administrators who are responsible for certain aspects of the items on the agenda to actually present the specific agenda items. And we'll be also doing board reports that we normally do during a voting meeting. We'll be doing that at during our workshop meeting. The other thing that's different too is that we'll be using a consent agenda. I want to let board members, remind board members how this works a little bit. If during the process of discussion, during our workshop, you see something on the agenda that you don't think that you would be comfortable approving for whatever reason, make sure that you bring that to my attention so that we can pull that out of the consent agenda. Consent agenda for us typically is that we'll go through and approve these items as a group, assuming that everyone is in approval. If there isn't anyone, if someone feels they're not going to be able to approve, just ask that you like to have that specific item pulled from that voting item, and we can do that. So it's really not a problem. So the consent agenda, it does mean that we have to know in advance. In a consent agenda, there shouldn't be a dissenting vote during the larger vote, only during when the item is pulled out. Does that make sense? Is that clear to folks? Also, I provided board members as well as our central office administrators a board meeting format survey. What I'd like to do is, if possible, collect this at the end of the evening. If you have time throughout the evening to jot a few notes about what you think about the format. This is obviously something that we're trying out, seeing how it goes. If it goes well, we'll consider keeping it. I mean, if folks are not happy with it or for some reason it doesn't go well, we'll revert to our traditional process, our 2-meeting process. Reminder too that we've also consolidated our committee meetings to a single night, which is in this case happened to be last Tuesday night, and so you'll be hearing from a lot of the committees this evening in terms of the outcome of those committee meetings. Okay, so with that as our opening, if there are any questions from the board, I will open it up for public comments. This is an opportunity for folks in the community or employees to speak to the board on any issue related, any issue that may be on the agenda or anything else that might be applicable to speak to us as a board. So seeing none, this evening we have a couple presentations. We're going to start out with Chris Herb from Mailing LLP, and Chris is going to review our end of the year financial report. Thanks for being here, Chris.
Thanks. Happy to be here. As he said, my name is Chris Herb. I'm a partner with Mailing LLP. We are the independent auditors for the school district. Very happy to be here to present the June 30, 2018 financials, which were just issued a couple weeks ago. I'm sure you have more exciting things on the agenda tonight, so I'll try to keep just highlights and keep it brief. I'm assuming you all have a copy of the statement, so I'll just kind of be hitting a few pages. Throughout the report, First page I want to look at is page 3. The way I like to summarize a financial statement is this is your financial statement. This is compiled from data we received from the school district, from the business office, your contract, your trial balances, your financial information, all of that. These couple pages here, these are the only things in here that are ours. This is our opinion on the quality of this financial statement. This is an unmodified or a clean opinion. It is the best opinion you can get as a school district. What that essentially means and what this opinion says is that the statements are in accordance with GAAP. Those are generally accepted accounting principles. You're in compliance with all GASB governmental accounting standards course pronouncements, including GASB 75, which was a big new one this year, which I'll get into in a few minutes, related to other post-employment benefit plans. There was no scope limitations on our audit. We come in with a very lengthy wish list, documents, contracts, everything from the big stuff down to individual invoices, receipt backup. We get everything we ask for as part of this audit, so absolutely no limitations were placed on our audit. Going back to the report, page 5, I just always like to point out that the management discussion and analysis is prepared by management. It's a very good reference tool. If you're just looking for sort of a quick and dirty explanation of how the financial statements work, what are the different sections of the statement, financial highlights from the year, also some condensed financial comparative information comparing June 30, 17 to June 30, 18. This section is a really nice summary tool to read through to kind of get the overall gist of the statement. Moving on to right after the management discussion and analysis, page 18. This is the statement of net position. This is a full accrual statement. What that means is this has everything in it, not just the general fund, capital project funds that you're used to seeing. This also includes long-term assets, long-term debt, capital assets, bonds, notes, compensated absences, pension liabilities. All of those things are in here as well. Year on year, numbers are pretty similar overall. A few of the variances, assets, total assets, about halfway down the page, under governmental activities, and governmental activities is your general fund, your capital projects funds, basically everything other than food service. Total assets year on year only up about $800,000. Most of that's related to a little bit of variation in the capital asset group. There's about $5 million of depreciation on existing assets this year. That's pretty well offset by additions. The large additions for the year being there's some significant roofing projects that occurred during the year, some LED lighting, and then just typical, technological IT equipment, buses, things like that. Down in liabilities is where a lot of the activity happened for the year. Total liabilities this year is $200,000. That's only up about $3 million from last year.
You said thousand.
I'm sorry, 200 million. 200 million, I apologize. It's up from about 197 million last year. Bonds, notes payable, down about 4.3 million from the year, and that's just a result of principal payments on existing debt. The net pension liability, which is your share of PSERS plan, the state retirement plan, similar to many other plans, the pension plan actually had a pretty good year as far as investment performance. So your pension liability actually decreased about $3 million. What happened though after we talked about the decrease in bonds, decrease in pension liability, there's a big jump in the very last thing before the total line, net OPEB obligation. That is up $8 million on last year. And a couple things happened there. The big thing was there was a new GASB 75 on other post-employment benefit plans. Essentially a catch-up GASB. And what it's doing now is that stuff we did with the pensions 3 or 4 years ago where we had to pick up our share of PSERS liability. Now it's doing the same thing with PSERS with the other post-employment benefit liability. So about 4.6 million of that is related to PSERS. And the other $4.4 million of that balance is related to the school's single employer plan. And just to give you an idea of where the state piece of that comes from, every year you have to contribute a certain percentage of payroll to PSERS. For the year that's being reflected here, 29.2% of payroll went to pension, and 0.83% went to this little OPEB plan. So it's that little other post-employment benefit piece that had never gotten picked up. But now we are unfortunately required to pick up. So the bottom line net position, the very last number in that column on the sheet, net position is a negative $70 million. Last year that was $63 million. So it has gone down about $7 million, and that is almost entirely due to this new GASB for other post-employment benefits. Moving back to the statement a little bit, page 20. This is how you're used to seeing your books. This is the general fund, capital reserve fund, capital projects fund. This does not include any of those long-term assets or liabilities. Year on year, overall, pretty consistent numbers. At the end of the year, the fund balance, which is the amount by which assets exceeds liabilities, it's only up about $900,000 from the prior year, up to about $19.7 million in total. Back on page 22, this is the statement of revenues and expenses for the funds. Right around the middle of the page, you'll see excess or deficiency of revenues over expenditures. This is sort of the operations income for the school district. This year it's about $2 million. That's down about $400,000 from last year. The reason for that is the increase in expenditures exceeded the increase in revenues from last year. Revenues are up about $2.7 million from last year. It's about a 3.7% increase. The local source revenue, which is the very first line there, about $51.3 million of revenue. That's up $2 million from last year. 99% related to real estate taxes and the millage increase that occurred for the 17-18 year. State source revenue is up about $500,000, and that can be chalked up to talking about PSERS and the money that you are required to contribute to PSERS in relation to payroll. You get 50% of that back from the state of Pennsylvania. So we're starting to level out. Those rates have been increasing year on year. I think for the 17-18 year, your contributions to the plan increased about $1 million. So the money you get back, which is 50%, you get about a $500,000 increase there. Expenditures in total, like I said, up about $3.1 million. It's about a 4.5% increase. Again, $1 million of that right off the top is going to be related to retirement increases. The rest of that, just very generally, it's going to be your salaries, your benefits, just year-on-year increases there. And at the end of the general fund, third row from the bottom, you can see about a $960,000 increase in fund balance for the 17-18 year. I'm going to touch on notes real quick, but that's really the meat of the numbers. Any questions on that information? Going back to page 52, I just wanted to point this out. These are the new, starting on page 52, the next 10 pages or so are all the new disclosures that we wrote related to other post-employment benefit plans. The first 5 or so pages are related to the PSERS plan. The next 5 pages are related to the single employer plan. It's just a lot of very general information about the plans, about how they work, about what the benefits are. It's very dry, so I'm not going to get much more detail than that, but if the turkey doesn't do it for you on Thursday, bring this out, knock you right out. Back on page 64, there is a prior period statement footnote. I just want to point out that it's not the result of anything being wrong in a prior period. That is how we get that $8 million of other post-employment benefits on the liabilities. We do not run that through current year revenues and expenses. That's run through as a prior period adjustment. So that's all that adjustment is. 72 is where the single audit starts. We do the required audit of federal money in accordance with the Uniform Grant Guidance as outlined by the federal government. Back on page 79, sort of summary of that audit. Basically, no findings, no material weaknesses. We did look at the special education cluster, which is the IDEA money the school district gets, and everything was fine there as far as the federal spending the school district goes. The very last page there, the next page, page 80, I just wanted to point this out. We did have a finding last year in regards to some food service inventory issues. I did go out there over the summer to the high school and got to rummage around the freezer a little bit, things like that. The controls over food service inventory are great. No issues there this year. So that's just a note that, hey, there's something in the prior year, but it's been clear. That's it for the financial. Any questions on that? We did also issue a small, called SAS 114 letter. It's a required letter to the board. It essentially just says we were engaged to provide an opinion on the statements, and we did so, and there was no issues or findings or anything like that. So, again, it's a clean letter.
A question, when did you submit this to the district?
Our report date is November 6th. I think I gave you a PDF shortly thereafter, maybe last week at some point.
Like the final one?
Yeah.
Just last week.
Yeah, it was last week.
Okay, because I just got this on Friday, I'm going through 89 pages or something. Not that I have to, check your math, but I would like to read it and actually try to understand it in whatever way I can before coming to a meeting.
Sure.
And have you say on this page, on that page, and that's it.
Right.
I
appreciate that. The hard copies take a little bit longer. We did send over the electronic file last week.
Which I attached to the agendas, which were in Word docs. And maybe we need to change our method of doing this and have Chris in the future come into this function committee meeting.
That's what I'm thinking.
Right.
Exactly. I mean, like 3 days. I didn't have time over the weekend to go through 89 pages.
Right, and when I thought we had discussed, okay, we'll have them, well, my concern is that the whole board really needs to hear the summary. And some are more inclined to look at the detail like you, and others really are not. So we'll switch it up and do it at a more detailed level, at a committee level going forward.
I would prefer that the report still be reported to the board as a whole and not in a committee setting, because I think this is the type of element we all have to see. Also, in a committee hearing, many of the people in the public won't be necessarily seeing that. Meaning the fact that we typically record this in a video setting, I think is much better to put it out in the public eye, even though we know that the committees are open to the public. So I'd still request that Chris or his organization still be present. I think one thing, a benefit may be that if we can get the hard copy, the worksheet on the workshop meeting week, and then if Chris is able to come the next week, that might be beneficial for us to be able to have a chance to read through it.
That's good to me.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we can certainly adjust the timing, and I certainly have other organizations where I do both. I go to a business committee meeting, I go to the committee as a whole. So if you guys will be here twice, whatever you want, definitely.
Any other questions for Chris? Chris, thank you.
All right,
Excellent.
thank you very much.
And we have another report this evening from Dr. Sue Miller, our Director of Pupil Services, about our special education and pupil services in the district.
That's great. There we go. And I have Mrs. Willier and Ms. Broadhead with me as well, our elementary supervisor of special ed and our secondary supervisor of special ed. So the three of us should be able to answer your questions. I did provide you a dashboard that's part of your notes, and some highlights for last year. That's what this is summarizing last year. The yellow column, and for anyone in the audience, there are copies of this out on the table if you need a copy. We have several areas. There's actually 13 areas of special education through the IDEA. I highlighted on our dashboard here the primary disability categories that are the most common that we see in the district. What I have highlighted in yellow is the area that we are seeing, as you can tell, the greatest amount of growth, which is the category of emotionally disturbed. We've talked many times with the board about our increase that we're seeing in mental health needs of students, and that is the children that are qualifying, and also to children that we're supporting prior to qualifying for special education. So that is an area of growth that we see in the district, nearly doubled, almost at a double point. And then in speech and language, we have been working diligently with speech and language and with occupational therapy as related services just below that in the dashboard. Response to intervention or remedial pieces that we put in place has helped us to reduce our speech and language special education costs and our occupational therapy costs, because we see kids prior to qualifying them for special ed, and we try to get interventions in immediately, and that has definitely helped reduce our long-term speech and language and occupational therapy cost. On the dashboard, you'll also see to the left the special education cost, and they have been up and down. We were able to really have another decrease last year, 17-18. I can't promise that for this year because we had a large curriculum purchase this year, and we've opened some new classrooms, and so, but hey, take your wins when you can. On the back of the dashboard is a highlight about special education and Exeter School District that we hosted the Special Olympics for the county here last year, and to thank the special education department, and especially Tom Legath, who really oversaw a great deal of the lion's share of the work. This first year, we're going to have a committee in the district now for overseeing the support of that program and the Berks County Special Olympics program, so we're working together. The other pieces on the back of the dashboard is the cyber charter school enrollment that has been going, had its peak there back in 2012-13. It has been going down, and as Dr. Winters and our curriculum team are working on more cyber programs offered here at the district, one of our goals is to have that number continue to decline, that students are educated here. And then lastly, access reimbursement. We've also been diligently working in my department to increase our access billing procedures and practices. We had a bit of a little mini audit with the company that does help us with our access billing, and they showed us some areas where we could increase our billing practices and be able to capture more money for the district. So we've been working on that for the last year. Are there any questions that you may have? I'm sure there are, so I figured I'd just open it up for questions.
Dr. Miller, could you speak just briefly about, and I know it's not part of the report here, but about the out-of-district placements for special education? I mean, can you maybe characterize how many students that we have, where they may, what sort of placements are out there, and maybe why we choose to place them outside of the district instead of accommodating them here?
We have about 32. About 32. It can change day to day. We have about 32 students, and I looked at the numbers from the last 2 Novembers, so we're right around the same range of low 30s, high 20s of students by this time of the year out of the district special education. We tend to need to place students out of the district who have a higher need than we can meet here in the district with the programming that we have developed. We have brought back a lot of students with our new autistic support program, our verbal behavior class over at Jacksonville. That has helped us maintain 8 students here who would have been out of the district because of the high level of need. We have been able to maintain students in our Crossroads High School 18 to 21-year-old program who are more like life skills students, and we've built that program through the support of over the last 2-3 years, and we keep our students here now. We educate the students in all the areas they're required to be educated in. So that's what we constantly look of how can we keep the kids here. But when we have students who have high mental health needs, and usually it's mental health and autism are the 2 primary categories where we have students that need to go out of the district to specialized programming. Another highlight that I wanted to mention about our out-of-district students, I've mentioned before about our students that are here in our group homes in the district. And we have been working with PDE, and actually Dr. Hemberger had mentioned it to me about students who are wards of the state and how we can get reimbursed for about 60-65% of the cost, because the students who are in the group homes tend to have very high needs, and I think it just comes along with things that they might be dealing with. Many of those students we have to place out of the district. We have to get specialized busing, we have to have aides on the buses, we have to have aides at the location, but we are now going to be able to get reimbursed for up to 60-65%. And then the other piece, because most of the kids, if not all, the students that we've had here are not Exeter residents, we will bill back to their family's district to get reimbursed for that. And Ann and her office and our office has been a focus over the last about year of how are we going to get more of that money captured back for us. So we're working on that as well.
Can you say a few things about the, I use the term Chapter 15, Section 504 kids, the other projected handicapped students? What do our numbers look like there? And what are you seeing kind of constitutes the majority of that population?
That can range greatly. We have students with severe medical conditions. We have students with variations of ADHD. We have students who may have long-term concussion side effects that they may need a 504. That can really run the gamut. Vision issues, and it can be things, a lot more medical things that come into play there, and they need accommodations at school.
Also, just like to say, I really appreciate the handwriting club and the OT.
Yes.
That's an excellent intervention. I call that a pre-referral intervention.
It is. It's a pre-referral intervention, and it has significantly decreased the amount of OT that we put in IEPs now. And the kids are getting remediated, which is really wonderful.
Right. And reduces the amount of time out of the classroom, too. I think anytime you're being with
Yes.
OT, usually kids may be pulled out. And the more time they stay in the classroom, obviously, the better. So.
Yes, and it's focused at kindergarten, first grade mainly, so we really try to get them at an early age, so we're not still working on handwriting in the 5th grade. So it's a good program.
When we send a student to another area to educate, how many times do we visit that location, and what's the process of setting up the visits for us to monitor what's going on?
What we do is our supervisors will go to meetings. Any meeting they have, they typically will go out to the meeting to attend. Yeah, minimally, it's a once-a-year meeting, but how often would you say it ranges? It depends on the case. It could be 4 times a year, it could be once a year, and then once a month, once a week. It all depends, and they're on the phone a lot with the directors beyond just attending meetings. The directors keep us directly informed on how the student's making progress and what supports they might need, or conversely, that they're ready to come back to the district.
Dr. Miller, I see emotionally disturbed, it has almost doubled in 3 years.
Yes.
Can you explain what that phenomenon is all about?
That phenomenon, we believe, has to do with the increased mental health needs of students. There's a huge increase in students being diagnosed with anxiety, a lot of depression. What the causes of that may be, I think a lot of it's in the news anymore about, who knows, social media, things that are causing kids to have a lot more anxiety today as students. I don't really know all the whys. We just know what we see as evidence in front of us. A lot more students needing medical care for the mental health area, being hospitalized, being in partial programs, which we are thrilled that these programs are out there for the students, because mental health is a need and they need to get their mental health. Plus, we're also raising awareness for suicide prevention and mental health, and we are working very hard as a county and a district to erase the stigma of mental health. And I think that could possibly be helping us too, because people need help, they need support if they have a diagnosis, and we want to be there to help them.
Just a quick follow-up to Pat's question. Do you think more of that has to do with new trends or new things that need to be addressed, or do you think it's just we're getting better at diagnosing what's going on?
Probably both. Families seem to have a lot more stress. I know when I speak with my principals, we have mental health clinics K through 12 in the district through the Progressions organization, and we keep our, you wouldn't believe it, we keep our elementary progressions counselors hopping. So, and they are very, very busy with our small, our very little guys, and then as we move forward, and Alicia usually will come here to give the update for the SAP in June. The referrals and the increase in need in mental health has just been exponentially growing. And we need to help support the kids because we see it in the schools. We see them hurting in the schools. I'm missing school attendance, grades dropping, different things going on.
Any other questions? So thank you so much
Thank you.
for coming out this evening.
Sure,
And
thank you.
Have a great holiday.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to move into our reports and go through a little bit of things out of sequence here. I'm going to ask Dr. Phillips to do the superintendent's report first.
Thank you, Dr. Carter. I wanted to dedicate my superintendent's report tonight. Normally we talk about the great things that happen in our district and our students and our staff, and that's appropriate. But tonight I wanted to talk specifically about the snow event that happened last Thursday and how difficult it was for all of us. Like all decisions, I look at all the available information and make the decisions based on what the weather reports we have. I'm not trying to make any excuses, but the storm came in quicker than expected and with much more intensity. That really put us in a bind with getting the students out as quickly as we could. We have reviewed the way we handled everything, and we'll be making some changes to our procedures going forward. But in the end, everyone was safe, and that was most important. I want to certainly commend all our staff for their efforts. Specifically, I know we have Mr. Wegman and Mr. Barnhart here. The Transportation Department, I also want to mention Todd Archois. They did a tremendous job in working with getting buses on and off the roads, getting buses out to buses that were caught in ditches and stuck in snow. Really just coordinating the whole event. I can't really put it into words to describe the job the bus drivers did, getting the children home safe. Surely successfully driving a bus in that type of weather took a special skill, as well as a resolve. I also want to commend the first responders, police and EMTs and other Fire Chief Jordan we spoke with the other day. All the different first responders that were part of this ordeal to help with our children. I did want to mention some specifics though. I did receive a call from one parent that wanted me to make sure I commended her driver of her children, Connie Fleming. She wanted me to share her love and appreciation for her efforts in getting the students home safe. I'm sure she speaks for all of us, and I asked that Mr. Wegman please share that sentiment with all the bus drivers. I also wanted to give special thanks to two of the drivers who were stuck on a closed route 422 with our students for hours, and I did ask them to attend tonight so we could recognize them. One of the drivers is Mike Robinson. He's been with us for 9 months. He surely wanted to be here, but he couldn't. He had another appointment. But I'm going to ask Mr. Wegman as well to share our sentiments, and we have a special gift that we'll give to him. We did have one of the drivers show up, Jenny Lechner. You want to come on up? You got a camera? Thank you. We had just something little we want to give Jenny for all that she did with those students, for those hours that you kept them entertained. Right? Entertained. So we want to give you something to think about. Thank you very much. And on behalf of everyone, we want to tell you how great the job you did in keeping the students safe and entertained throughout that ordeal. And Ginny is also, she's been with us for 22 years. She's now serving as a sub driver. So she was on a sub route that morning. So I think that's an extra effort on her part, and applause for that. So thank you very much. I know the students had made cards and certificates and that so forth to give out to the drivers, but as administrative staff, see, we also got some treats or snacks for the drivers so they can share on their route. And again, it's only a small token of the gratitude that as a district we can show for the job they did on Thursday. So I think it was important to bring them out and also say when they graduated, great job they did, and recognize them for that. So thank you again. Now, I know Jenny's got to work tomorrow morning, so you can leave if you'd like over to Keith. But thank you very much again.
I'd just like to ask you questions. What were some of the things that you thought you needed to change in terms of how what you said you were stimulating and different?
Sure. In debriefing the way it worked, we looked at the level of communication that was provided. We're going to increase the communication to a much higher level. We also looked at some of the staffing issues, and we're going to increase them as well throughout the buildings.
Is there any way, and I feel for you, like when it's like that, I really do, and I know last year we had a parent come in and they were a little, I don't want to say complaining, but talked about calling off school or delaying when there wasn't any precipitation. And I appreciate Dr. Phillips said, and I want you to continue to feel that always lean on the safe side for our children, because you know, I would rather my child be home and it not rain or not snow or not be icy than be out in what had happened. So I know that's such a difficult decision. Is there any way in your report, through your investigation, that you'll be able to make those calls any sooner, or I guess that's the question, that can you make those calls sooner?
One thing I can assure you that as many parents that come out and complain that I'm being too conservative, it's not going to change my view. I think erring on the side of caution, as I said before, I have a sign in my office that states, you may call me a fool 100 times over, but I'll never make a fatal mistake. And I take that to heart when I make these decisions. And as I've said before too, when we make these decisions, and I say we, it's a group of superintendents, about 4 in the morning, we're texting and what are you doing, what are you doing? It really was, and 2 days earlier we started looking at weather reports. The storm was moving in quicker from Tuesday to Wednesday, but when we looked at Wednesday, it still predicted the snow only to start at around 10, 11 o'clock, and then ice that came was not supposed to come until about 2 to 4. So with the good work of the transportation department, our typical early dismissal starts at 11:30 and 12:15 and 1 o'clock. We're very concerned that the 1 o'clock dismissal for the students would put us close to that ice storm, if you will. So again, great work, transportation. We got 10:45, 11:30, and 12:15. There was no expectation that 12:30 was going to be a problem, or 12:15. I'm sorry. It happened at 12:30 or 12:15. It was right in the middle of it. So we knew we were in a little bit of a bind. As far as making it quicker, you know, typically I would like to do it the night before, but there was such a discussion amongst the group. I believe one of the superintendents did call it the night before, an early dismissal. One of the changes we're going to make, and again, Mr. Way is kind of the communications person for getting out the parent links and so forth. We did talk about getting something out the night before just to let parents know in the future that there may be an early dismissal, sort of plan for it. So that's in the works as well. But it really wouldn't have affected what we did. You know, it was literally 12:40 or 10:45, and I started to look out the window going, oh boy, we're letting kids out, nothing's happening. And within minutes, it took off. But it is difficult. I mean, we rely on the weather reports. One of the additional things we're doing, and I use that on Friday morning, we're reaching out to the police as well. I talked to Lieutenant Schaefer and got his view from his patrols, what they felt the roads were like. The reason we only did a 2-hour delay and not a closure on Friday morning is that they felt that it was passable, as well as what we discussed with inter-district. So he's comfortable with me reaching out to him in the future as well. So that's something else we'll add in. Again, all the information that comes in, I kind of process, but it's still going to lean on caution.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to know, I don't understand what you mean by more staffing in buildings, so what do you mean by that?
Well, one of the things that I've done is I've always tried to get the staff out of the buildings as soon as their last buses come home. We'll make changes that all administrators will stay until the last bus comes home.
Yeah, I was just going to say, one of the things that I think is easy to do after a situation like that is second guess decisions, and that's certainly not what I think is productive in the long run. But I really applaud the administration for sitting down and sort of analyzing what happened and making notes of it, so that when we have an incident maybe like this again, that we do it better. And every time we go through a situation like that, it gets easier and it gets more, let's say, formulaic, or more, so we can anticipate the problems. And I mean, nobody could foresee that our kids would be stuck on 422 for 6 hours, and that was just a terrible situation. I know a lot of families were extremely anxious, and so the more we can do to, I think, reduce the anxiety, keep people informed, make sure that they know their kids are absolutely safe. I mean, I think that's the best thing we can do. But really getting together afterwards, breaking it all down, to me is an excellent process. I'm glad we did that. Any other comments?
Yeah, I just have a question. Out of curiosity, so, what is there a breakdown kind of what buses were home within an hour or 2 hours? Because my kids got home really late and I got hardly any communication. So I was just curious how there were, for example, Jasmine got a call about her child's bus, and her child was home, I think, he didn't go that day, but his bus came an hour and a half before my kid's bus, and I didn't get a message at all. So just curious how many buses came home as late as my child's bus came home.
Well, when we were sending out our updates, we were including all parents in the updates. And as we got to the end of it, where there were only a few buses, then we got specific to those drivers. So I know I did send out to the board, there were about 6 or 7 communications that went out prior. I don't know, I mean, we can certainly check to see if you received any of those and why you didn't.
I didn't, and neither did my neighbor. And my kids came home at 2:45. And Jasmine, I think yours was 1:30, something like that there. So there was a good hour and 15 minutes between them. And I mean, she got a personal message saying what was going on, and we never got that. And again, I mean, my kids were safe. When you were commenting about that other bus driver, my bus driver is Tammy. I love her. She's amazing. I had no doubt that my kids were safe with her. Just my neighbor and I were getting our information on Facebook from other parents. That's all. So,
Well,
I have no doubt that y'all tried the best that you could, and I appreciate that.
And as I stated, we've already, I already spoke to Mr. Ray today. We're going to be much more aggressive with the amount of communication that we put out. And then as what we'll do, and I spoke to Mr. Barnhart as well before Mr. Whiteman showed up, but we can fill him in. What we'll be doing is we will be, starting out, big picture, everybody will get the notice, we're going to do an early dismissal. And then as we go, hopefully we won't have what we had happen last Thursday. But then as the buses arrive home, we will eliminate those buses from those parent links. So if you continue to receive your update, it means your buses will still be on the road and you'll be hearing that.
Dr. Phillips, one more question. Give me a minute.
I just want to add quick, I think a lot of this has to do with how the roads look, and the school district doesn't control how the roads looked, and I know even in Brecknott where I work, the night before the word from our roadmaster was that we were all prepared and we had no expectation that it was going to be like this. So a lot of this has to do with what the roads look like in terms of pre-treatment, and it's my understanding that very little of it was done before snow actually started to accumulate. It makes a huge world of difference, and that's one of the things that we need to keep in mind too, is we don't have the control over the roads, and that was one of the primary factors I think that made this really difficult. Because I was even driving around 1:30 coming back from Albright, and once the township truck had come by and put salt down on the road, it was easy to get up on a hill that I've been stuck at for about 15 minutes. So it really makes a big difference about that pre-treatment and even the salt that comes afterwards when the accumulation starts to come too.
All right, I did remember. I know at my son's school, it's very strict about, I believe it is, it feels like it is through the communication, I know, through the communication that comes home in the paperwork about pickup, like when you're allowed to pick up your kid and when you're not. Like, I'm always, my husband's like, can I go get him? I'm like, I don't know, we didn't send a note, or I don't know if he can go. Like, it feels scary. Like, are we allowed to pick up or drop off? I don't know. It's pretty strict.
We like to be scary.
Yeah. You have to have a note by like 8 o'clock, or then just cut off, I don't know, whatever. In an incident like that, our parents, and maybe my perception of the pickup is wrong too, like, which I'm saying, like, that's just my perception as a kind of a new parent in the district. In an incident like that though, are parents allowed to pick up their child?
Yes, but I think what we need to do as an administrative group is talk about a procedure, because we couldn't penalize you for not having the AM letter, or, note and stuff like that.
Right.
But the other thing is, I think the communication piece that we're going to put in place will make it a little easier for you to understand, the bus is on the road already, the bus is moving, there's not any buses held up, there's no buses off the road, so you may choose to say, well, okay, I'm going to wait a little bit, or you may choose to show up.
Can parents pick up their child at a different bus stop?
No.
No?
That would be, I'm sorry, I got you. Mr. Wegman, that would be
I just know
something.
if my child was on that bus and I was able to get to them somehow, I would have wanted to get to them. Like, I don't want, that it's just horrific to think about what those parents were enduring while their child was stuck, and not being able to get to them. Also, when the snow started to come down, and I knew my child wasn't going to get on the bus until 12:15, and I could have gotten to Milwaukee at 12, I would have wanted to, and nobody would, I probably would have been a little bit nice. My husband would have said, I'm taking my kids, like,
Mrs. Hacker, I will tell you, we did have people come,
Okay.
before dismissal occurred,
Yeah.
and we certainly allowed those children to come down to the main office
Okay.
and take it with their parents.
Okay. Yeah, I just don't think any parent should be turned away from that. Obviously, you have to be a little more on the safe side, and security-wise know that that's the parent and so on, but I would assume we would let our children go.
Yeah, once there's a 12:15 early dismissal, if you would show up earlier than that. The only thing I would Mr. Wegman can add on if he wants, it might be difficult having parents showing up on different bus stops without that bus driver knowing, identification and things like that. In case we may have a sub-driver, it just, security-wise, it might be a little bit better if they show up earlier. But we'll certainly take that all into consideration, and communication will be put out there.
Dr. Schlaffer, did you want to say something?
No, I just, like you said before about being scared, like there are times like we have to have rules, like people call it at dismissal and decide every day whether they're going to come pick their child up or not. And we're in the middle of trying to dismiss kids. We have kids getting on buses. We don't know which bus left yet at this point. And people are calling and saying, I want my kid here. It creates a lot of confusion, and that's how kids don't get on the bus that they're supposed to be on, or wind up coming back because the parents waiting at the school. It's like, if you have the whole day to say you're coming to pick your child up at the end of the day, 3:25 isn't the time to make that call. I mean, that's kind of our point of it at that. It's at the end of the day kind of thing. That's really, for us.
It sounds like it's a safety issue, right?
It's
for the child.
At 3:25 is not the time to say, oh, I'll make my mind up every day whether I'm going to come or whether I don't. It just creates confusion and trouble all the time. So that's kind of, I think, fair for the secretaries, for us, for the bus drivers, for everybody, I think. Sure.
I have one more thing. You mentioned, or Hunter had mentioned the salt trucks, and you said about working with the police department if we have an incident like this again. Is there any way to work with the township even to have them, and maybe you did, I'm just asking, as another remedy to help this, have the township come with a bus and help with the salt and things like that.
Well, part of the limitation is we're working with state routes, Shelburne Road, Wallen Road, 422. We're working with roads that really aren't in the purview of the township, and the resources for the township aren't allocated to take care of those places. I think that's more of an issue we would have to take up with PennDOT District 6, Berks County Maintenance District, in order to figure out what's going on and what their process is to get ahead of the storms, the pre-treating, and then getting on the roadway. I know people down in Douglasville at my office, they got out of the office and they got stuck for 3 hours trying to get up, or just locked on 422, similar to the buses. So I think it was a regional wide, not an isolated Exeter Township situation. I think it's more of a concern that should be voiced beyond just on the county.
It could also depend who manages the different state roads within the township as well, because while Jim's definitely right, they are the state roads, the state or PennDOT's responsibility. They'll often pay the township to maintain them during a snow emergency, and even then, I think that we should kind of have an expectation that the township should be able to come and help us, especially if there's a situation like what happened on Thursday.
To answer your point, that we do work with the township, Mr. Raymond?
Yeah, we could not ask for any better cooperation than we get from Clarence Ham and the road crew. We called Clarence numerous times when buses were stuck. He will pull his trucks off the route to go help whatever we can. I was up on the top of Church Lane, and one of the trucks stopped me and said, "Just wait here, I'm coming back down so you can follow me." So we cannot get any better cooperation than we have with Clarence and our road crew. I mean, they're tremendous, and they will help us any way they can.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks everybody for that discussion. It was a very difficult day. We're going to move on to our other committee reports, and we're going to go to item 5, Athletics Committee, and that's Mr. Aaron.
So I got a report from Tom about our athletic successes for the year, and this will be printed in the newsletter, and I'm going to try and read through it quick. The field hockey team had a great year. The varsity team finished 9-1 in league play and 20-3 overall. The team played in the county championship where they lost to Ole Valley 3-2, taking second place for the county. They then continued on to District 3 play, where they were ranked 5th in the district, and having beaten State College 4-0 in the first round, Exeter lost in the second round to Hershey High School 4-0. Many players were recognized by the Berks County Coaches Association for their talents on the field. Peyton Halsey, senior, scored a combined 106 points over the past 4 years and was recognized at the game and in the paper. She is the 6th player in Berks County to accomplish this milestone. She was also named to the All-Berks team. Caitlin Roper, who's a senior, was also named to the All-Berks team. Both girls represented the senior high school in Berks County in the Lancaster Lebanon and Berks County All-Star Game at Donegal on November 11th. Taylor Henderson, Jr., Aaliyah Linfoot, Jr., and Ellie Maley, a Jr., were all voted to the Division I first team, and Gabriella Boyer, Madeline Dole, Bella Kirstein, and Ariana Klein were awarded honorable mention as well. The girls volleyball team is in the midst of another highly successful season. The team won its 10th Berks I title in the past 11 seasons. More impressively, the team won its 3rd consecutive Berks County championship. For the 2nd straight season, the team lost in District 3 Quadruple A championship match. This is the 3rd straight season that the team has played for the PIAA Quadruple A state playoffs and 7th time overall. No other Berks County school has ever qualified for Quadruple A state playoffs. Boys water polo, led by Coach Mark Ricketts. Boys water polo notched its 20th win, 20-12 record, and a season record of 14-0 over Governor Mifflin to finish 7th in the state at the PI State Water Polo Championships held at North Penn High School on November 2nd and 3rd. They were led by Luke Scaboria, who scored 6 goals, and Chris Scaboria, who had 6 assists. The Eagles broke it open in the 3rd quarter after an 8-8 tie at half. In addition to Luke Scaboria's goal, Jaron Wyatt had 3 goals, Chris Scaboria had 2, Jacob Eames Hansen had 2, and Sid Mubaraju had 1. Thank you. Nick Griffith, their goalie, had 12 saves in the win. Earlier in the tournament, they lost their first game to the eventual state champion North Penn and their second game to LaSalle. The Eagles qualified for the state tournament by defeating Penridge High School 22-11 in a play-in game earlier in the season. Chris Scaboria was named to the second team All-State team in the top 20 players in the state, and Luke Scaboria was named an honorable mention for the All-State team selection in the top 40 players of the state. Chris and Luke were the top goal scorers in the league during the regular season, and this was the first state tournament win in water polo's 3-year history at Exeter. The team would like to thank the district and the board for their support. I should have read that. Just a quick note on the water polo team. I saw Mark Ricketts recently, and he just wanted to have a little bit of bragging rights about beating Governor Mifflin, which I believe they beat 3 times in the whole season. Is that right, Mike?
That's correct.
So they had never beaten Governor Mifflin until this season, and it was Mark's interpretation from the coaches' comments at one of their games that Exeter was a team that was beneath Governor Mifflin, and they got lucky on their first win, and they were very excited to beat us the second game, and then again the third game, and was unsuccessful every single time. So I think that's a real pat on the back for that team, and I know that Mark was really pleased with that result for this season. Varsity football, the 2018 Exeter Eagles made their 8th consecutive trip to the District 3 football championships. Head coach Matt Bowers' 10th season, so we're very proud of the work that he's done with the team and also of their success. Girls soccer, they had in their final record 14 wins and 6 losses. They placed second in Division I and qualified for the Berks League playoffs but lost in the first round. They also qualified for District 3 playoffs and were seeded number 10. They won the first game over Governor Mifflin 2-1 but lost in the quarterfinals to Cumberland Valley 3-0. All losses this year were teams rated in the top 7 in District 3. This was the best record the girls have had for a long period of time. Golf, senior Alex Seelig ended his career as perhaps the most productive scholastic golfer in Exeter history. He became the second golfer to win 2 consecutive Berks County individual golf championships and the first to medal for 3 consecutive years. He is one of only 6 golfers in the history of the tournament to win consecutive tournaments. The girls cross country team finished the regular season 14-1, tying for the most wins in school history. One major highlight of the regular dual meet season was defeating Wilson for the first time since 2010. Yes. Early in the season, the team finished 3rd at Oakbourne Relays Invitational and won the Centaur Invitational at DeSales University. At the end of September, the team competed against teams from all over the country at the Paul Short Run at Lehigh University. They finished 12th overall and were the 3rd highest finishing PIAA school. At BCIAA Championships, the girls were 2nd, which was their highest finish since 2009 county championship season. Individually, Helene Shevik, Catherine Kirchner, Sarah Smith all earned All-Star County status based on their top 8 finishes at the conference run. Earning all division status based on their top 25 finishes at the conference run were Corinne Scher and Kira Marr. At the District 3 championships, the team qualified for the PIAA state championship meet by virtue of their 4th place finish, and this is the first time that the team has qualified for state since 1990. This year's highlights include, for girls tennis, 1 player. You know this one, Mike? Neha Adi. I'm going to say Neha Adi, and I'm so sorry if I messed that up. Qualifying for the districts, and our number 5 player, Risha Masuka, as a number 3 seed for the Flight 5. Our doubles teams, Neha Adi and Yasisha Kagathupa, as well as Tori D'Almo and Sashri Muparaji. Close. I feel so terrible. We're both seeded number 3 in Flight 1 and 2, respectively. But overall, key wins as a team are against both Daniel Boone and Muhlenberg. So, I didn't get to read all of them, if you have time, I encourage you to definitely read through the District's newsletter for some of the more details about some of the players' awards And I just have an athletics committee meeting that will be scheduled for December 19th, Wednesday, at 7:30 p.m. at the senior high school conference room. We're going to be discussing a couple of items, including the athletics committee policy amendments and a couple of other items that are escaping my mind right now. But if anybody has any questions about that, I'm happy to take them now, and you will all receive invitations via email with attachments that will have some source material for the things we'll be discussing. Yeah.
Did we have a cross-country team in the boys, Commissioner?
We did, but
Did they do anything? Did they go to any meets? Did they run anywhere? Did they have
I can bring up
Did they
some
have
of
a lot
the-
people participate? I didn't hear anything about them.
yes. So they're not in the newsletter, and I think that has to do more with just the season they had compared to some of the other teams. But I think, if I remember correctly, I talked about some of their past achievements, previous board reports. I'll have to pull them up if you want to see
Just
them.
wanted to make sure we had a
Yeah.
team.
We have more teams than the ones that I announced, and they did well too. And I think that this year we just were highlighting some of the teams that had done some of the best that they've ever done, and I think that's why it was just chosen for those teams to be highlighted in the newsletter.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Okay, the next section is curriculum program, curriculum committee. Mrs. Schreiber.
So, I do have a question though about the report, so I'll defer to you after I've done. Okay. Tonight I am just reporting on proposed textbook for the 2019-2020 school year for our AP English class. And it is reported that the following proposed textbooks for purchase for the 2019-2020 school term will be available for review for 30 days in the administration building. The book is titled The Language of Composition, copyright 2018, and by BGW Publishers. Dr. Phillips, where will that be displayed so people can see it?
Over your right shoulder, over your right
Okay.
shoulder.
So if anyone wants to see the textbook,
There you go.
it's there. We had a lengthy discussion about it in curriculum committee, and it looks like a great book, and it's what the team would like to utilize. So we are putting it up for review, and then with that, we will purchase it hopefully.
And I just want to add, there were questions that came up at the curriculum committee meeting about digital, and also why would we buy textbooks. The department feels that buying the textbooks is more feasible because of the smaller class size. And they also looked at, or actually they tried to find digital textbooks. And Mr. Wisniewski actually had trouble even finding information on digital textbooks. So that was the end, I believe.
On that particular book.
On that particular book, yeah. The only thing they really found information on was a 2013 edition.
And I will also, Dr. Phillips, on the same email I think we're referring to, or the information, they did review multiple copies. It wasn't presented to us in the committee, but Dr. Winters did tell us that, and he gave us a list of all the books that they did look at, and this is the one they narrowed it down to.
This book is actually recommended by the AP Instructors College Courses professor. So I think we covered. Thank you.
Okay, is that all for the curriculum committee? Okay, thank you. Facilities committee, Mr. Brady.
Before Mrs. Hacker, I'm going to have a question after I present this. We'll be recommending that the board approves KCBA Architects to design project work, create construction documentation, bid contracts for a number of items that will include work at Lorraine Elementary School, Jacksonville Elementary School, Wrighton Intermediate School, and Junior High School, involving anything from windows to HVAC and other things of that nature. The question I have is, I don't see a contract or anticipated cost for KCBA, and since I know the gentleman from KCBA is in the audience, maybe he can help me with that question.
Sure. Ms. Brady,
Sure. Introduce yourself.
My name's Ed Mangold with KCB Architects. I'm the senior project manager for these projects. So basically, the school board authorized expenditures for multiple improvements, capital improvements over the next 5 years. A not-to-exceed limit was identified. Our contract is a base contract that identifies all of our duties and the things that we have to deliver. Attached to that contract every year, we amend based on the scope of work for each bundle of work. So last summer, we had an attachment to our base contract and identified that scope that was completed last year. We have a proposed scope that you're referring to for this coming summer. That'll be attached and amended to the base contract as well. As far as our fee, it's in a range. It's a percentage basis. So, for example, last year, the base fee was between $1 million and $3 million. It was on the lower side of that. But that range of cost for the project results in an 8% fee. This year it's a little bit more. Our fee percentage goes down to 7%. So as the project values go up, our percentage of fee goes down accordingly. That's how
that helps us quantify the cost then. So if we're looking at $3.4 million contract, we're looking at roughly a $225,000 fee. Oh, right. Okay.
So
that helps.
the lower on the range, it works out better for you as far as, or I'm sorry, the higher on the range, it would work out better for you. That's how it's set up.
Thank you. And Mr. Pizzuti, can you tell me how we're doing on fixing our lights at the Watering Tree?
Right now, the LED conversion is completed except for the dimming issue, which Dolphin Electric is still working on. And I'll be meeting them with them next week to discuss their progress on that and how they are addressing those issues at no cost to the district.
Were we able to remediate the problem regarding the door area of the back of the building prior to the winter season, which apparently started last week?
Yes, I've been having some difficulties with that. We do have the specifications. They are out on the street. A lot of the contractors and vendors that I've spoken with are behind, and most weren't taking new work. Some are, and I'm getting pricing on them. The current conditions out there, I'm still holding out hope I'll be able to pull the trigger on it, but it may be delayed. So
that's all I have at this time. Unless anybody has questions for Mr. Pizzuti.
Mr. Pizzuti, at Rifton, KCBA has areas of work, operable window replacements.
yes.
Operable means they work, so why are they being replaced? I mean, it's a dumb question, but.
The windows that are operable, that open, are in bad condition. I'm not sure, I wasn't here when that building was built, but they are very problematic throughout the building, and they can be quite dangerous if they come down, you can see them on fingers. So that was identified in KCBA's initial tours of the building, of an issue with the building that needed to be addressed. So the goal of that project is to make sure they're all operable and safe.
Mr. Brady, it's my understanding too that we'll be voting on this scope of work, I suppose, for lack of a better term, that's attached to the this particular agenda item. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. I have one other thing. Mr. Pizzuti, does this contain everything we discussed in the last facilities meeting for things we want to put out for bid this upcoming fall/spring?
Most of the major things, there are some summer projects that will go on, mostly roof work that KCBA is not involved in, that we handle straight out of my office with Tremco. But I do believe that covers all the items.
Thank you.
I had a question. This is a decrease, if memory serves me, from what we saw at the business functions?
That's why I was putting my finger
Oh.
on it. For Mr. Pizzuti, to point out that from what we shared at the business function committee meeting last week, and speaking with KCBA, the masonry work, the different buildings and the scope, little more work in defining the scope. So what we're considering is to come back later with that, or we'll add it as a bid alternate, or do it standalone later, because we need more definition on, like I said, scope and time. So that is the time. And that amounts to $510,000.
So this is for, never mind. I answered my question.
So you're saying all the masonry in all the buildings will be pulled out?
Yes, from this.
I'm looking at the thing that we got in business functions, and honestly, I didn't realize until he just said that we had a difference.
Right, and we decided to do this because you're approving them moving ahead with that, but I think in our discussions, it's, okay, let's define it better. We just need more definition. And I think I mentioned that in business functions.
Yeah, I think the key too is with that sort of masonry project, we're not on such a strict time frame as we are. You know, we have a lot of HVAC upgrades on this. So the idea of putting this in front of everyone now is so those bid documents can be designed and distributed and bids awarded, and we can start procuring the equipment well before June, so that we're not waiting for equipment once the summertime rolls around, so we can get things installed and up and running before August.
Just a quick follow-up to that. One of the concerns that I had identified at our business functions committee meeting was that the costs that we have over this year and for 2019 and 2020 would cut away probably 3/4 of our current capital fund balance. And I think, if I remember correctly, the basic gist of my comments was, is there any way that we can roll those back so we can spread it out over a longer period of time? And I don't know if, Ann, you had gotten to a conclusion on that in the way that I asked it maybe. Is that something that now this is going to go into 1920, these masonry projects, or are they going to be going into the 1920 school year for spending?
Well, putting it on as a bid alternate would allow us to, when all these other costs come in, and make a decision whether we can push that out. We're also looking at the senior high section of the roof that is slated for 1920, but Rob is looking to say, well, is that really 1920? Can that be pushed out a year? I fully understand your concerns about using up the capital reserve funds so rapidly, but these are projects that have to be done, but I think we can push, we're looking at the opportunities to push it out.
That's satisfying, thank you.
Well, I'd like to talk to that topic, though. I think when you're looking at capital reserve fund, it's there for projects of this nature. I think that if you don't have the funds, then we have to look for bonding. One of the reasons I always look at where our balance is and what we're trying to do is, though we have a tax structure, we have a depreciating number going on because we don't get the compensation back from the state on various things like PSERS and things of that nature, or equitable funding for education. Therefore, we draw down balances that we don't need to touch. And in turn, what we're working on is we're going on a negative sum game where eventually we're going to run out of money. The question is when we're going to go bankrupt. So when we start looking at the reality of it, we don't make the ship function and we let the roofs leak, eventually we're going to have no school because everything's going to blow up. So I think we have to make the investment when we make it, and we can't be penny wise and pound foolish at the end of the game.
And we can fund these out of the general fund as well. We've done that in the past. So when we're building the budget for 1920 and we find after our evaluation is done that they have to be done, they can be done out of the general fund as well.
Thanks, Mr. Brady. We'll move on to the agenda to Personnel Committee, Mr. Chapin.
Well, if I follow the rules and nobody else follows so far, I should be pushing my responsibility over to Christine.
Thank you. Okay, everybody, good evening. The board had previously approved the district virtual programs, and I just wanted to announce to all of you that Pamela Wetzel, at the senior high school science teacher, has taken on the additional responsibilities related to the district virtual programs effective October 1st, 2018.
And that's primarily a report, there's no approval that we'll be doing everything for that, correct?
Right.
This was just a report to the board to know that the person that has been in the position and the name of the person. And she's doing a great job.
Yes, I heard that too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Policy committee, just going to speak to that. We continue to move forward, but have added the administrative regulations to the process. We also have, Hunter and I are looking at the 000 board operating guidelines, which will be modifications to the in the current manual that will also include specific guidelines for each one of the policies under the 000 section, which has to do with board functions. There also is something called PNN, Pennsylvania News Network, which comes out from PSBA Policy Services, and basically is starting to identify policies that need to be revised that we have already just passed, that were just revised. So they need to be revised again. For instance, like Act 44, what had to do with safety and security, now has some changes to our executive committee privileges, things that we can do in executive committee we couldn't do previously. So that'll have to be a modification to that policy, and that's in our 000 section, which we've already completed. So we're kind of at that point now where we're starting to go back to and have additional policies that will need to be modified because of legislation changes or case law or whatever might happen with the school code. So that's what we're doing with policy.
Dr. Hamburger, just a quick question, and could have been because I was on leave for a little bit. You said that you're adding administrative regulations to the policies. Can you explain that? What do you mean?
Yeah, the administrative regulations are actually promulgated by the superintendent and the administration. We don't have any board authority over those, but they are added to each one of the policies if they're called for. They're developed by PSBA, sample recommendations. The administration goes through and makes some decisions in terms of how much or what of that content they want to add as an administrative regulation. It just adds more detail and guidance to a policy that might not always be there. And it's primarily for the benefit of the administration for implementing the policy. Each one of the policies, if you read the policy carefully, it will say the superintendent will develop administrative regulations and guidelines to implement some aspect of this policy. And when it says that, that's an administrative regulation that has to be added to that policy.
So I understand. So what is, I know a few times I've asked to see what those were and they're still being developed. What's new about them now? Like you said, we're adding them. Now, as we go back around, we'll be able to see those?
Yeah.
That's what you're referring to?
Yeah, you should be able to see, you should, as you go and look at policy, I don't know where you are right now, Dr. Phillips, in terms of those ARs, but.
Yeah, we're working our way through. What the process is once we have the ARs to develop, we look at the SBA, they give us the sample, we throw it out to the administrators to look at it and pick through it, and then it goes to the review process to when it's ready for use. It's the implementation process, and we're a half dozen, almost 10 of those already done. We're a team we're working through.
But the board really doesn't have any role in terms of making approvals of those. So it's more of an FYI for you guys to know that they're there, and they will continue to populate the policy manual as they're developed.
I guess my question all along in the past year with that has been when I approve a policy, and I see the policy and it says as per admin regulation, I'm approving it without seeing what that admin regulation is. So that's why I've always wanted to kind of see what that was in approving that policy. I know I don't have any say on what the regulation becomes, but it's part of the policy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's kind of just, it's just the other way around, really. I mean, the administrative regulation is not the guiding document. Policy is the authority, it's the rule. And the administrative regulation is simply a guideline for the administration to use to help them in the implementation of the policy. So nothing changes as a result of the administrative regulation. It's just clarification. So maybe the best way would be to take a look at one policy sometime, see the notation for the administrative regulation, and as you read through it, you'll see it just basically lays out some additional detail in terms of implementation. It's not real complex, and it doesn't change the nature of policy or anything that you would approve.
Dave, I have a quick question on the administrative regulations. Will they be posted on board docs? The ones that are done? Okay.
Yes, they're out there. And I was going to bring them on this week.
Okay.
Well, they should be like a footnote at the very bottom of the document. You should see like a hyperlink at the bottom of the document for AOR, and when you click on it. I believe that's the way Don said it. That's all for the policy committee. Technology committee, Mrs. Pager.
We had a technology meeting on November 13th and at 4 o'clock, and there were 4 board members there, including myself, and 6 staff members from the IT department. And there were a few administrators, such as Dr. Winters and Mrs. Guidish. And we discussed a number of items, you know, the cameras. We discussed the Chromebooks that are now down to the 5th grade level, everyone from 5th grade to 12th. They're going to be working during the year to. There are computers down even into the 2nd grade, 3rd grade, and 4th grade, and we're going to be working on getting them, you know, eventually into kindergarten, and that everyone in the district, every student in the district will have a Chromebook. For those that could not attend the meeting, you have in your packet the minutes from the meeting, and just two pages of what we did at the meeting.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Pager. Extra Community Ed Foundation, Mrs. Schmucker.
Yes, I do have a report. Hold up.
I'm sorry? Oh, by the way, it wasn't 2 pages, it was 3 pages.
All right. So Amy Lutz has sent me the report for ECF, and we want to thank Mrs. Stratton, of course, for stepping in for me during my maternity leave. And ECF thanks you and enjoyed Mrs. Stratton's support and guidance. So thank you. ECF just presented a check for $20K to the district for the music box truck purchase on behalf of donor Janet Braden and her husband Randy. We're looking forward to the new truck being incorporated into the music department. ECF sponsored Mr. Potter's 2nd-year engineering students at the high school on a field trip to American Crane on 11/7. Mr. Potter reported a great trip was had by all. The Wizards and Wands Harry Potter themed STEM event scheduled for October has been postponed for early spring. ECEF's BRIC project has been introduced to the Exeter Township School District staff as of late last week. We're thankful for the district and their willingness to spread the news of this project via the Exeter Township School District newsletter and social communication. So that's all I have to report. Thank you. And actually, while I have the mic, I also want to thank Dr. McClendon. I didn't thank her for also filling in for me while I was on maternity leave with curriculum committee. So thank you, Dr. McClendon, as well.
Thanks, Mrs. Hacker. DCTC Joint Operating Committee, Dr. McClendon.
We met on October 24th, and we had our report on the independent audits. I have actually 2 of these to read, full financials. They have a schedule for the new welding building. They're going to start construction in April and hope to be completed by November. There was a vacancy as the principal at the West Campus. They had someone that was previous employee that was filling in. So they completed their interviews and they appointed Kyle Fallweiler as the new principal. He was an assistant principal at the West building, so I know I have a vacancy for assistant. They gave us a number of handouts, and I was able to get one of these for each of you, so if you'd like to have it, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And then I'm going to pass these around too, but I only have one copy. If you wanted another copy, if you want one copy, I could get that for you. The one that's coming around though is about their partnership that they have with RAC and also with Bloomsburg College. And students who are in these programs can earn up to 29 college credits, and then they can complete their associate degree, sometimes at no cost or discounted amounts. And Bloomsburg has, their partnership is they can also get a bachelor's degree on campus at RAC through Bloomsburg at a much reduced cost. And in this pamphlet that I just sent you around, list the programs. There are currently six programs that students can take where they can earn these, up to 29 college credits. And next, in the 2019-2020 school year, they're going to start a seventh one, which is a teacher academy, like early childhood education. One thing I read in here, I saw on this page where it says earning college credit, this next one, the value of an associate degree. There's a little blurb in there. It says nearly 30% of Americans with associate degrees now make more than those with bachelor's degrees. And so I don't know what that number may have been before, but I mean, it's pretty impressive. And so the community colleges and having this partnership with the VCTs, and also Reading is part of that, having that partnership where students can get they can graduate and almost have half of their associate degree. So I think that's the case. The other thing is, they have their 50th celebration, and one of the things they're doing is a raffle for a Corvette, right? And it's been restored. So I'm going to pass this around. They are selling raffle tickets for $20, and they have two vehicles that they're going to raffle off. And these were restored. These were restored by the students. And the Corvette is on the East Campus. They have that in the lobby that was on display. I'm not sure about the truck where that is.
Truck's in the West Campus.
Oh, the West Campus, okay. So the tickets are $20, but they're going to sell a maximum of 1,000. Those odds are much greater than the lottery. Good chance to win.
Is this a propane powered?
I think it's about like a 1970 or somewhere around there, so I'm not sure if they were using propane.
It's a stick shift, so it's packing and trucking.
I still have mine.
So they gave out a few other flyers, I'll pass those around too. One is about the continuing education, adult education, and these are the programs that they have that actually generate revenue. And so I told you about the welding, but there's some of the other ones. And this one is continuing education apprenticeship programs. And this was just some information on their printing program. Besides on the 50th, the celebration, April 27th, they're going to have a big event there. They're going to have food that's prepared by culinary students and some food trucks and music and all kinds of things going on. I know someone had asked about getting to see the other programs. On the one auditorium, I got to see the programs. That would be an opportunity to learn about their programs, to see the programs. It's April 27th from 11 to 3. They're going to have that. And that's their big celebration.
I saw a demonstration this morning. I was at the PAC meeting, and they're going to be shortly be able to show, I don't know if they talked about their 360 cameras, but they will be able to show virtual field trips by use of the ocular glasses. Pretty impressive. We saw some of the students showed it off to us this morning, and I watched the whole auto tech department work at once. Kid was over here working on the car, he turned my head and I was looking at the guy working on the truck over here. Up, down, you can see all the pipes above. It's a really neat thing that Mr. Del Conte is working at in his class. And somebody from IUP came as a professor from the Indiana University of Pennsylvania to, I guess, discuss the program. And he commented they don't even have that at the college level. So they're really doing some great stuff.
Yeah, I was in it.
Yeah, it's really neat stuff.
They're doing great. I mean, I probably sound like an advertisement now with CTCs, but I'm learning a lot about it and how, how beneficial they are to our students. And they have really changed over the years from what they, used to be. And so, I probably will miss some of these things. So, try it if you can. I know that's during the day, so maybe you can't attend, but if you can attend that celebration on April 27th, that would be great. And we did not have a meeting in November. They gave you off at 3 seasons. You've been off there, so we don't meet our next meeting is December 13th. Well, if anybody wants a raffle ticket, you can go there and purchase them, or I could do it for you if you'd like. Huh?
I'll take 20.
20, okay.
Hold them to that. It's on camera.
You
got it in the bag. You give it a thumbs up.
You have it today? You have it money today?
Not that I want to give.
Thanks, Dr. McClellan.
All right.
BCIU board, the November meeting was postponed because of inclement weather. That was last Thursday. I think there was snow last Thursday. So the meeting was postponed until November 29th. And I'll be reporting on that in December. Township Borough Liaison, Mr. Trapino.
So the only update I have is that we facilitated a meeting with the group that is working on an ad hoc basis to address the Transportation Committee issues. The township then took an action to authorize their architect or code officer to assess some of the recommendations that the committee may be looking at to see if there was any potential for relief related to any projects that we might move forward on. And I think this was just sort of in the effort of trying to achieve some due diligence related to anything that we might do versus trying to move forward with something and then being caught on the back end with either zoning issues or costs, etc. So I thought that was an accomplishment. I did not attend the meeting because I was concerned about a fifth person showed to be a quorum, and we didn't want to have that discussion because we needed to maintain some confidentialities.
I have a question. Based on the township, beautiful township newsletter we just recently received, and all the work being done on Procurement Avenue.
Which was 2 months late.
Oh, no. I'm about 2 months behind right now, so it's good. Has the district considered, or is there going to be any impact with the sidewalk projects, with walking?
We actually met with the, I guess it would be the controlling crew that's doing the construction, as well as the local police companies, and discussed that with them about, they do have a policeman there working the red light during our times of kids going and coming back home. And then we'll have meetings once they change from the one side of the road to the other, to update how we're going to work that. Yes, the police have been well versed into how to handle that to make sure our students are safe. The problem is we can't always have them come to those lights to cross if they're a little bit lower, so the police are trying to avoid that happening as well.
And Dr. Phillips, in anticipation of the project being completed, I'm not exactly sure when they said completion might be, but are we...
November of 2019, I believe.
Okay, so not terribly long, like a year. Are we looking ahead at all for more, can't think of the word I want to say, but parking curbs, bicycles, more walkers at that point, or we're just going to kind of see how it happens, what happens, or, you know, I mean, as a district, are we promoting utilization of the walkways and more healthy transportation, but also safety?
That would be the next level of discussion with the police to make sure they can weigh in on safety getting across that big street, because they'll be back to the 2 lanes on either side, and we have to have that question if they will have somebody permanently stationed there to make sure that the students can go by.
Or like a crossing guard during.
A crossing guard would be another avenue.
Do we currently have any crossing guards in the district?
We do have one, I believe. Did we lose that last person, Greg? We lost him. We had one right there down that way, down Drum Road. It's not easy to fill that role. That would be the one that we would have.
Thanks, Mr. Trevino. Legislative Liaison, Mr. Geller.
Dr. Ember, I don't have anything to report other than to say that the results of the election last week, the word coming from Harrisburg is that they're just going to blow the doors out on spending because the Republicans no longer have a reason to lie about being fiscally responsible. So I just told the truth, Hunter, I'm sorry. So there's probably going to be a ton more money available for education. Everybody should be knocking on doors and making phone calls to make sure that some slice of that extra funding gets put here.
I think that's a great job for the legislative liaison.
I expect you living in Harrisburg for the next 6 months to 3 years.
Work comes first. Who said that?
Thanks for taking care of us on that.
I just have a quick question. We have, I guess, is it 2 new members of Congress that represent the school district? Can we invite them to have a tour of the district at some point? Maybe just one of our buildings, or maybe all of them. I don't know. But I think that would be a good gesture. And we get screwed over with so much clout in Exeter Township, and I'd really love to see some effort made to try and bring in some of our elected.
I beg to differ. We've gotten some really good pull with Senator Schwank, Senator Representative Gillen, Representative Rozzi, which we're still working on his project. We'll certainly do the same thing with the new legislators.
I understand how you're looking at it, but when I look at Mark's Facebook feed, it's Muhlenberg School District. When I look at David Maloney's feed, he doesn't really interact much with the schools. Barry Joswiak, mostly Schuylkill Valley, because he lives in Burton Township, and Mark Gillen, I believe, lives in Robinson, which is Dan Boone, I believe. And I think he does a lot of interacting in government because he has the entire district. We've got 4 state reps. We're not getting as good representation as I think we could have. And that comes with the territory of being gerrymandered into 4 different districts, but maybe this would be a good way to bring some of the federal guys into knowing about Exeter and having a little bit of idea of what some of the good things that we're doing, and that might be able to help us on just a representation.
Absolutely.
Oh, I wanted to say, Dr. Phillips had presented about PA Works at the forum.
For the funding.
Right, for the funding. So what you just said, Jerry, about trying to get more funding, there's statewide campaign, or and I'm on that part of that coalition. So is Mr. Campbell. We attended a training session on Saturday morning to learn about that. But those are some of the things that we're going to be trying to do. And I haven't talked to you yet, Mr. Campbell, about what we can do. But it's things like getting the legislators, having them hear the things you just said about that, trying to, statewide, to try to get more funding from the state for education. And, because otherwise the burden falls on taxpayers, and so they have cut our funding, over the years have really cut state funding. So there's this big thing going on, and, we're going to be working to try to contact the legislators and, working to try to get more money for education.
It's going to be there.
Yeah, but we're going to try. Statewide is trying to get more funding because the state has to step in and do more for equity and more funding. So.
Thanks. Thank you. I just wanted to comment on the ad hoc transportation committee. We did have a meeting recently, and we had a few things that occurred at that meeting. One was that we invited the transportation coordinator from the Conrad Weiser School District, who was there to provide us with their impressions of contracted services 7 years after going from school-operated transportation to a contracted program. So we had an opportunity to really learn as much as we possibly could from somebody who had actually been through the process of converting from district-operated to contracted. We also provided a report to the committee about the trip that we made to the Upper Moreland School District to check out their propane vehicles and their operation, which is very unique and very interesting and very exciting. We discussed the efficiencies and use of propane gas in the district, and had a representative from the community actually speak, I think, very informatively about the value of propane and how it can be used by the district. And then finally, we talked a little bit about the outline of what we're going to be presenting to you as a board at the next workshop meeting, sort of an outline of the various components of what we've been doing so far as a committee over the past, I think it's been since last April that we've been meeting. So we want to make sure that folks on the board who are not part of the ad hoc committee meeting or committee have that information. So that's what we've been up to as an ad hoc transportation committee.
Remember, I just want to let the board know something. Last week I was on Route 422 going toward my home, and it was right there, I guess, where the Dollar General store is. And isn't there like a primary school there or something that the kindergarten or preschool they have an academy there?
Antietam Academy.
Antietam Academy, yes. So I was, you know how the slow moving is, and all of a sudden I hear this screeching of like, what is this? And here it was a bus, a New Roads bus. This is privatization. New Roads bus coming down off the, off to the end. So I let the bus. I was like the first one there, and I let the bus go ahead of me because I wanted to hear if that was just an anomaly at one time or what. And every time that bus had to move and stop, these brakes were screeching. Now, as far as I'm concerned, that is a very bad issue when you have screeching brakes and transporting children. So I think we would never have that in our school district with Mr. Whitman and his crew. So I think we need to think very carefully about wanting to privatize anything in this district when it comes to busing.
To the bus stop.
And it's very, very loudly.
What time of day was it?
It was in the afternoon. It was about maybe 4 o'clock.
What day of the week?
I didn't have a day.
I'm trying to figure out, maybe it was rust.
Maybe it was what?
Maybe it was rust.
No, I don't think it was rust.
How do you know?
But it did have children on it, that's all I know.
Did the bus stop?
Well, I wasn't there when the bus didn't stop.
Did the bus stop?
However, it screeched.
The bus stop.
Thanks, guys.
And when I have screeching brakes, I go and get new brakes on them.
Thanks for that.
And I don't have children.
Next on the agenda, we've got 2 sets of minutes that we'll be approving later this evening. The October board workshop minutes and also the October 16th board voting minutes. Next, we have our treasurer's report. Mrs. Guy.
All right, this evening, in the voting part of the meeting, the board will be approving the treasurer's report, and what's included in there is the summary of revenue expenditures as of the end of October, statement of assets, liabilities, and fund balance, our payroll and fringe benefit payments for the month of October. Included in the report is also our investment statements as well as student activity fund. Very quickly, looking at the revenue, year to date, we are on track compared to last year in terms of total revenue collected and as well as real estate collection rate, real estate being our highest source of revenue. As of the end of October, the flat period, it was about 95.5%, which is comparable to last year. Expenditures, comparing year to year, current year to last year is at the end of October. The only significant difference is in debt principal payment. With the issue of 2017, we moved a principal payment from May to September, so our outlay for debt is a little higher this year to date because of that change in date of principal, which saves interest over the long run. Investment rates noteworthy. Last year was 1.1% on our different investments. Now we're at about 2.15. Any questions on the treasurer's report for October?
Yes. The change that we made in allowing people to pay through November, it's not really had any kind of significant impact. Pay taxes.
No, it hasn't. Obviously, because our flat rate collection is on the same as last year at 95.5. Moving on to the list of payments, the board will be approving the disbursements. And from the general fund, the disbursements total $1,288,583.12. From the capital reserve, $397,549.10. And those capital reserve payments are primarily balances due to the contractors from the projects that took place during the summertime. Are there any questions?
Thanks, Mrs. Gosh. Board policy, Dr. Miller.
The board will be reviewing and voting on for the first review, actually just a first review, no vote, on the policies regarding physical examination. A change in that was the district was looking at paying for new employees' physicals. The next board policy was Hunter was looking at questions 321, I turned my page too fast, on political activities. Hunter had some questions that I believe Ellis was looking into getting us some answers on. Ellis, did you have any answers for us on for Hunter's? Oh, Sean did.
Yeah,
okay. You're satisfied with that?
Satisfied.
Okay. And Hunter, was there any other wording that you wanted to be changed? Okay. Okay. Gifts, the 322, tobacco 323, the personnel files 324, and in the personnel files it references that an AR will be completed, and Christina let me know that the AR for that is completed. And dress and grooming, first reading, complaint process, first reading. Were there any questions, comments?
Yeah, I think on that one, the one you just mentioned about dressing and grooming, I saw it says employees shall be groomed so that their hairstyle does not cause a safety or health hazard. What does that mean?
My guess is it has to do with our food service department or any area. Christine, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, it said, and even in industrial arts or anything like that, if somebody has excessively long hair and they're working at something, it could rip out or rip your scalp. Okay, so they're just talking about specific areas, not depending on if they're involved in sports or they put it out or
And there are several policies from I through H, thank you. No, N, that are for the second reading. Okay.
So I missed this, and I didn't talk about it back at the physical examination, about adding, paying the district payment for physicals for
Yes.
employees. Did we get what that cost would be? I know it would vary, but did we know what that is going to cost? And is that money already in the budget to cover that?
where we get a driver visit, and the fee will be the same, $65, and the TB test would be $20. So the figure we gave of about $500 is a good estimate of what it might cost based on an annual turnover of about 55. So what was the amount you said? $65 plus 20?
Yeah, I mean, the amount that you said that is $65 plus 20, correct? 6,500? 5,500. Like per year. And then another question was, is that in the budget, like where would that, you know,
Well, the appropriation would come out as the expense out of a professional service. You would have to do a transfer from budget reserve. Budget reserve is there for things that were not anticipated.
And did you look into whether, what other districts do as far as when someone is applying for a
The ones that
job?
responded to me, majority do not.
Speaking of the superintendents, there's no indication that they're going to pay for physicals.
Thank you.
I had a question about 321. The third item listed, conduct of employee representative elections. So the following situations are exempt from provisions of policy.
Right.
Okay?
Yep.
Conduct of employee representative elections. That means
That they can have their employee elections that would not be subject to that policy.
Union.
Yeah, the union
Yeah.
elections.
That's what I figured, but does that mean on the clock?
Well, yeah.
That's-
Well, good question, because I'm not sure whether, and I was thinking of this, any union activities probably should be conducted outside of the regular school day. And if they are conducted during the school day, that would only be with the approval of the superintendent, would be my understanding.
If it was an actual election for a union, the Pennsylvania Labor Relations Board is involved to work out.
I have to agree, I think the wording is a little bit confusing, maybe, and so if we can get some clarification on that wording, that's not a bad thought.
My thinking is that, like, I didn't know, I don't know how they do elections. I don't know if they do it in the middle of the day, end of the day, if they do it at an off-site. Like, I don't know how it is, and that just said to me that they would be able to conduct their elections on the clock.
Is there a possibility that they could use some type of secret ballot system by email? It's not my understanding that they do that, but is it possible that they would do that?
If you're talking about their election of officers, that's a purely internal matter, and you really don't have any say in how they conduct in terms of the actual process. You don't have to allow that to take place during working hours. That's a minimum right that the school district has. Beyond that, it's an internal matter as to how they conduct it.
So does this even need to be here then?
Well, it's not clear to me. I mean, again, if we're talking about if the union, if they were going to, for example, if a situation arose where the employees decided they were going to change unions because they're all unionized right now, that's something that occurs with the PLRB, the labor board's participation, and you can have some discussions with the labor board about when, where, how, but ultimately the labor board has the final say in that type of election. So I'm not sure exactly what policy is intended to address, whether it was the employee union elections where they're changing unions, or if they're talking about their internal representatives.
We can work to get some clarification for that.
Yeah.
Getting back to policies regarding, the policy regarding physical exams, I would like to request that we separate that out from the consent agenda and vote on that separately. I know I personally won't be approving that policy as it's currently written.
Just as a point of order, when we would come to that vote, if people wanted to vote against the provision to pay for the physicals, could they do so by asking for an amendment to remove that provision, and then we can still pass it on first reading this evening?
If it's pulled out of the consent, then you're back to your typical business for operating, for dealing with the motion. So
But that wouldn't violate our policy formulation process, though.
If there would be consent from the board to do that.
I would request that we work on the motion as written first. Prior to
that's
amending, or else you're going to amend it, and we're going to, it's going to 1 year.
Well, the reason I bring that up, Jim, is because if it were to fail in its current reading, rather than have the district administration rewrite it for the next meeting, why wouldn't the people who disagree with that just amend it instead so we can get it passed this evening rather than having to wait another month? That's where my thinking was going. I mean, I'll be voting for it because I agree with that provision, but if there is, that support, I'd probably rather see it get done this evening rather than wait until next month.
I'm fine with that. Okay. Are there any other comments?
On policy 320, I was looking at it, just need some clarification. I'm looking specifically at this is the freedom of speech in non-school setting. Number 2, refrain from making public statements about the district known to be false or made without regard for truth or accuracy. And then following number 3, it says violations of policy may constitute cause for disciplinary action. And I think there's a lot of interpretation to be made in the known to be false and made without regard for truth or accuracy, when some individuals may have an understanding or a feeling or being misled by others into a situation, and then they're under disciplinary action. And how do we define that disciplinary action? Is that something where someone goes and talks to someone, or someone where they get suspended from work, or someone who gets terminated? I mean, we need some definition of that, I think.
If it calls for administrative errors, I'm not sure. I think we're trying to catch up with you here, Jim. It's not, we're not on that policy specifically. It's just we're at the second reading level with this one right now, so it's makes it a little bit more complicated.
Well, just looking for making sure we know what we're doing before we vote on it, and then step back and go.
Well, we've already voted on it once.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't mean I really agree with the first time.
Okay.
I'm starting to get like Jerry. Better watch out, I might be libertarian in disguise. Never.
Welcome.
So can you, Jim, for my benefit, because I was mainly trying to get my up on my computer, what
Okay,
are
I'm
the,
looking at
what's
this one, I'm looking at
more specific
I'm
language
looking
you're
at the
proposing?
language that says known to be false or made without regard to truth or accuracy. And I think it's the made without regard for truth or accuracy that can come into question based on how the individual attains the initial point of view that they are expressing, and not knowing that truth or accuracy because of whoever is giving them that information prior to that. And then to possibly put them under some disciplinary action, which could be very draconian based on something they didn't really even know they were going down the wrong street on.
I don't think this is thought, this is speech.
I know it's all speech.
So, but you're bringing thought into it. You're saying, I don't know what he told me, but I think it may be right, so I said it.
But he said it based on something he had heard.
But that's not, I don't think that's the
So,
language of the
but
policy.
it's all about verbiage. It's all about freedom of speech.
I kind of agree with Jim. I think it's invoking what you're thinking during the time and the purpose for which you make it. Like, if you're making something, a statement maliciously or purposely ignorant, I don't know, I guess that would be negligent or negligible. If you're making a purpose with that purpose, you're making a statement with that purpose, you know, you'd be saying something without regard to truth or accuracy on purpose, but how are you supposed to know if that purpose exists? But at the, I don't know, to me it just doesn't seem, I don't know, I understand where you're coming from, but I'm not sure where you're looking for the change, because I kind of feel like this is just something.
I think I'm going more towards a definition of disciplinary action.
Okay.
When it gets into that, I think there has to be a step-by-step that goes into any kind of disciplinary action, especially when you're talking about someone's freedom of speech, which is protected. I think that you have to see where someone's coming from. I mean, obviously, it's not good for someone to come in and blatantly say something that's outrageous, but if it's a misinterpretation, you know, you can go down that whistle down the lane thing, and the next thing you know, you have everything blown out of proportion.
Mr. Council, any thoughts about the discussion here?
Well, I think you create difficulty for yourself if you try to identify a specific disciplinary action in the abstract. So the last sentence says that violations of the policy may constitute cause for disciplinary action. The decision concerning any disciplinary action, I don't know, within the context of this policy, has to take into account just cause provisions under collective bargaining agreements, school code provisions under 514, the school code for support staff, 1100 section for tenure folks. So I don't know how you could define the specific discipline you're going to impose without knowing exactly what the facts are. So, and in any instance, as a practical matter, I'm assuming we would get a call from the administration about a particular circumstance, and we would be saying to them, either you can't discipline in this circumstance because in fact it's protected First Amendment speech, or you can, and here's what might be a reasonable recommendation for discipline. So my advice would be not to try to define it.
I was just trying to make sure we didn't do anything wrong.
And I agree with you 100%.
I want to make sure that it's a through process.
Especially when we're talking about potential personal.
Are you requesting that we?
No, I just wanted to make sure we're all having a conversation about this, so we don't pass something and then later on go, or anything.
Yeah.
What?
So we'll keep that as part of the consent agenda at this point. Okay, any other comments about any of the policies that are up for vote later this evening? Okay, if not, we're going to move on to business functions.
Starting with business function 20A, truck purchase. There's a recommendation for the board to accept a bid from Penske Truck Leasing for a 2015 Freightliner truck in the amount of $50,000. This was the only bid that was received, and it does meet specifications. In addition, a general fund payment toward the purchase of the truck in the amount of $20,000 is requested. This was a budget appropriation approved as part of the 2018-19. $18,000 was approved. We're asking for an additional $2,000 to support the full payment of $50,000. The Exeter Music Association will be contributing $10,000, and the Exeter Community Education Foundation has donated the $20,000, which Ms. Hacker has reported earlier. Are there any questions about the award of this bid?
I'd just make one comment. I think as you true such as this, I think the partnering with the Music Association and the generosity of the Exeter Community Education Association to support our children's activities can't go without note. I think this is a great gift in a way. If you look at that, when they're covering over 60% of the cost of the gift.
Is this truck used all the time?
This is used for all your trips down to Disney World. It's going to every one of your competitions, any one of your adjudications, any one of your parades, any football football game. So you're going to see it used probably throughout the whole fall season, selectively in the spring.
I think in college games, safe to say it's at least once a week for most of the school year.
The last truck was purchased when my son was finishing senior year of high school, so it was 10 years before the last truck, so it's well used.
Yeah, so my concern is that we've only gotten one bid, and it's for $50,000. Now, when you get into late January, early February, when car dealers, et cetera, are scrambling for sales, there might be more options out there with better rates. So, is it needed today?
Well, the request was put in last fall as part of the budget, and the reason being due to the age of the current vehicle, which is 1999, it's unreliable. And recently, when they were at an event, it was reported to me that the current truck was smoking. So we very specific specifications, or they have very specific specifications, which could be one of the reasons why there weren't more than one bid. They do need it, and they went through the process to request it, to have money put in the funds, and also to get support from the foundation and the EMA. So
The current bus is broken down many times, and I think the concern is the truck. I think the concern is that it's ready to go.
they did do their homework, went out and looked around, at what was available out there, and the prices they were seeing were about $48,000. So
it's right.
It's right in line. 20B, the 1999 GMC box truck, looking for authorization from the school board to sell this via a sealed bid. We would sell it as is.
Smokes, who's going to buy it?
I guess that was on the recording. Oh, 20C, the 2017-18 audit report, based on Mr. Gelliff's comment that you'd like more of an opportunity to review it. Even though this is the final report, this could be moved to December if you'd like, to accept the audit as prepared by Maley and authorized distribution.
I doubt that I'm going to have anything to shed light on. It's just in my head. I'd like to be able to look things over and make sure that everything just looks copacetic. And 3 days was just not enough.
Right.
So if nobody else is of the mind, let's just get it done now, I guess.
But in the future, we'll give you more time.
Okay.
And 20D, advertising for bids for transportation vehicles. In October, Mr. Wegman presented his plan to replace buses for 1920, and this includes advertising for bids, writing the specifications and advertising for bids. Any award would have to come back to the board in the future. So for 1920, the buses that we're looking to replace, 2 each of 77 passenger buses, 1 each of 54 passenger, and 1 28 passenger 4 wheelchair position bus. And in the bid also would include the trade-ins, which were reviewed in the October report, which is 1 2005 72 passenger, 1 2006 84 passenger, 1 2005 54 passenger, and 1 2006 23 passenger bus. So those are buses that are 13 to 14 years old and have well in excess of 100,000 miles, most of them close to 150,000 miles. And finally, E, budget transfers totaling $40,992 for the month of October. Any questions?
A question regarding the buses. I was actually at a NPO meeting up at Geneva earlier today, and once again they were purchasing their buses for their fleet in one of the transportation authorities, and they were finishing out their fleet, finally getting everything over to CNG, and these are vehicles that run for hundreds of thousands of miles before they retire, and then obviously they were willing to make that investment. I'm wondering why we're not going to turn the tide and finally go the way of what Pennsylvania's natural resources, which is the natural gas. And in fact, if we start transitioning now, once we're done in about 5 to 10 years, we're going to have one of the most efficient, cleanest fleets going in the whole area. I just don't understand why we keep going down this road.
Well, until we're able to address the site issues and, going to alternative fuels, we talked about propane, and, I'm sure the compressed gas or having a fueling station. I think, there is funding out there for fueling stations, infrastructure. I think eventually it'll become more popular and more feasible, but right now, in our situation, and to be as efficient as we can at our current site, we're still recommending diesel. I'm not sure, Rick, if you have any comments to add.
Well, the infrastructure changes is a huge expense, and we went 7, 8 years now. We can't get a roof on the building. The natural gas, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you have to structurally do a lot to your work bays to do those. I don't think you do for propane, but the natural gas. So there's a lot of expenses there that I don't think we can meet right now.
And finally, just to add, our average age of buses right now is about 8.5. It has, increased over the years, as most districts have. But by doing nothing, obviously the age will go up, which can be problematic in terms of, number one, increasing repair costs, as well as, well, that's probably one of the biggest obstacles, but it's all about having a fleet that is safe for our students.
I would like to see us purchase all propane buses for our students. I think we could take out a bond or something and maybe get that rolling, because as we look at what's happening in our environment, you saw fires in California, you saw the terrible rains we had all summer. Climate change is real. I don't care if you don't believe in it or not, it is real. 99% of the scientists, the climate scientists, say it is real, and we must do something to stop it. So I'm for, purchasing a whole fleet of propane, which is a lot cheaper. It's a lot less oil you use. When we went up there to Upper Moreland, the staff there could not, say any more than they did about how wonderful it is. It's quieter. It's not noisy. In the wintertime, they're ready to go in 5 minutes. With diesel, they're ready to go in 40 minutes. Here you have a bus driver, 40 minutes, and you have 50 bus drivers. You have to pay them to sit there and warm up the buses. So I won't vote for any diesel engines anymore.
So we're concerned about $5 grand for employees' doctor visits, but $250,000 for fueling stations, okay? and $110,000 for bus is okay.
I'm concerned about the planet and the nature of what's going to happen with our children or our grandchildren if we continue on this road of polluting the environment.
I'm concerned about our taxpayers paying for generations of the
They need to have busing, and we need to have it efficient, and we need to have it environmentally friendly. Those are our needs.
Okay, I think one of the things we should probably do is move on, but I'm hearing that we need to probably remove that item from the consent agenda, vote on that one separately. That would be item D, advertising bids for transportation vehicles.
Okay, so one of the things said was about changing if you're going to use alternative fueling stations. You gave an amount of $250,000, that was it?
Yeah.
So is that, do we know that that's what it costs
That's
to do
what
that?
Justin, the standards been, so sending the architecture firm at AM. That was the estimate.
Well, we don't really have the capacity for that in our current location.
Why are we, I know we would have to approve purchase, but why are we approving bids if we're still in like our ad hoc committee deciding on what we're doing with buses?
Yeah, the approval of bids, from what I understand, has no bearing on whether or not we'll actually accept the bids or go forward with it. It's just to get the process started in the event that this is the direction we're going to go. You know, our hope is that the Transportation Committee and the board really come to a particular point where they're ready to make some decisions in regard to the future, you know, of district transportation. And I think, you know, obviously, if we continue providing the services we have right now with some modifications to the current facility, we're going to have to continue to upgrade our fleet. So, but this doesn't mean that we're actually accepting bids or that we're actually going forward with it. It's simply authorizing the administration to seek bids. Any other matters there? We move on to personnel. Okay, personnel, Ms. Miller.
Okay, thank you. I'll start with the resignations, and this is what the board will be voting on later this evening. You do have the detailed information in your packets with the names. The support staff, we have 2 resignations. Our certified substitutes, we also have 2 resignations. Going on to our appointments, we have 3 certified staff that you will be voting on. We also have 9 support staff you will be voting on. We have 1 extracurricular staff member that you'll be voting on. Certified substitutes, we have a total of 9 that you will be voting on. Guest teachers, we have 4 that you will be voting on. Support substitutes, we have 4 that you will be voting on. Food service substitutes, we have 2 that you will be voting on. Next topic is the change of status. There's 3 support staff that have a change of status you will be voting on. We have 2 food service staff members that you will be voting on. Leave of absence is the next section, and there are 5 leave of absence that you will be voting on. Our next section is the course requests, and you do have the details in your packets of these courses. There are 7 course requests that you will be voting on. And the next section is the staff conferences, and there's a total of 11 that you will be voting on. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Does anything have to be removed from the consent agenda?
No.
Just teachers, which I see as 21B. I'm trying to find the right number. Doesn't have a separate item number, but it's under 21B. It's gonna finish in 10 minutes. Okay.
Okay.
Questions, discussion about
we're approving stuff that's already happened. So we have under support staff number 1 and 3 are past our date. With November 5th, this person's starting, and October 31st, number 3. So if it gets voted down, I mean, I know I've asked this question a couple times, but it gets voted down, have they already started working?
Yes, and some of these positions are ones we need to fill immediately, and to wait until our board meeting to come would be, students would be hurt because we need these positions filled.
Okay, so we're not really needed.
I think what we do is we sort of clarify those as being ratifications versus approvals, and ratifications are things that are more after the fact versus approvals are prior to the fact. So you're correct in your observation, and it's just that I think that it says here we're recommending we approve or ratify. In this case, we're ratifying.
I mean, if we didn't fill those positions, you'd have no one in front of those kids. So
No,
it's difficult to wait.
I'm not yelling at you, I get it. I just, you know,
I feel like you're yelling.
I'm doing that.
I have a question, Dr. Phillips, for course requests, how many, per contract or however that works, how many courses can a teacher request in a period?
I mean, as many as you want, really. It's just there's a limited amount of reimbursement.
Oh, okay.
We have a step reimbursement up to the first pass goes to a certain level, and then after that, it steps down.
Right, okay.
But it really comes
But
to
they
the
still
work
go on the
load.
course request, even though we might not even be reimbursed.
At some point, they may not get any reimbursement.
Right.
They're looking for the
Well, I
combo.
see like nine credits for one. I would assume like after 6, at least it's not 100%.
We lose your reimbursement.
75
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
so.
Well, actually, we're not at a percentage. We have a set amount of money.
Oh,
So I think it's after your first master's at $2,100.
Oh, okay.
So if, you know, you may be reaching in your own pocket, but you know, again, the quicker you move on the compliment.
Anything else with personnel? Okay, now we'll move on to
Thank you.
functions, Dr. Miller.
This is not a voting section of the agenda, it's just for your information, field trips within 60-mile radius. The dissertation research request, we're going to hold off on that. Dr. Phillips is going to inform you of that. And then the last section is the agreements. We have an agreement with Devereaux Foundation. This would be for a student for special education services. D, special education services agreement for Lancaster, Lebanon, IU, another placement for a high-needs student. E, agreement for developmentally neuropathy. That is for an independent evaluation that needs to be completed. And F is the Valley Forge food service contract agreement for a student we have at the Valley Forge program.
And with regard to the 2 dissertation requests, they both contacted the district to, as you see, the first request to work with junior and senior high English, science, and math teachers. The second one is to work with teachers providing instruction to gifted students to inclusive mathematics classrooms. The approval just gives them the ability to reach out to our teachers to see if the teachers would participate. We are under no obligation to have our teachers participate. I do think it's important, though, to give back to the educational system, so that's why we bring these forward for you to have these people get their doctorate dissertations completed.
Any questions?
I'd also just like to say, item A, field trips, if that's a report, I think there's a misrepresentation in the first line that we're recommending the board approve the field trips. Unless we do have a responsibility to do that, but I thought that was just a report.
No, that's a report with that.
Yeah. So, and also that affects the consent agenda because it indicates on the consent agenda we've been approving A through F and it should be B through F on the consent agenda.
Perhaps we'll ratify.
Okay.
I feel like you're yelling.
Okay, any other questions about the student functions report or section? So, we're going to conclude the, come on.
I have one other thing. In regard to our reorganization meeting coming up in December 24th, I was wondering if the board wanted to use the same process we used last year for elections of officers, where they had an opportunity to send out a what's the word here? A questionnaire for people who wanted to run for any of the offices. I think it's just going to be president and vice president that'll be up. Sorry to ambush everybody with this right now, but I just wanted to see if there was interest in that, because I would definitely be in favor of doing that. But
I would stay with our previous process that we used to use, which was at the night changeover, we determined who was going to be board president, who was going to be board vice president, and we let it that. I don't think we need campaign for anything.
I'm good with a straight up and down.
Sure. You know what, yeah, sure. We'll make sure we give enough notice after the reorganization, maybe the second meeting in December or even January. Get all, yes, absolutely, make sure.
Okay, so here's the fun part. We're going to adjourn this meeting, and then go right into our consent agenda voting meeting, and do that right now. We're going to start with Pledge of Allegiance. Please join public comments, an opportunity for anyone in the remainder of our audience who would be interested in making any comments at this time. Seeing none, we're going to move to our first voting item, and that will be Facilities Committee. Mr. Brady.
It is recommended the Board of School Directors approves item 7-A on the workshop agenda. That was regarding hiring KCBA for the management design and working with construction management for various improvement projects.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Minutes. It's recommended the Board of Directors approve items 17A and B on the workshop agenda regarding the two sets of minutes.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Mrs. Page, your Treasurer's report.
No, you just read the script.
You have a yellow script.
The yellow script.
It is recommended the Board of School Directors approve item 18 on the workshop.
A and B.
A and B.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Board policy. We're going to separate A. I'm not sure, did we decide we wanted to separate B, which was political activities? I didn't hear any request to do that, but B was political activities. So we're not going to separate B, but we're going to separate A. Let's vote on A. First, it's recommended the Board of Directors approves item 19A on the workshop agenda.
second.
This is physical exams. This is the physical examinations policy we're voting on right now. Any further discussion? Well, let's vote and see if we have any difficulty distinguishing them. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Roll call.
Mr. Aarons?
Oh, yeah.
Mrs. Beja? No. Mr. Pina?
Yes.
Dr. Hemberger?
No.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Dr. McClendon?
No.
Mr. Kellogg?
Yes.
Mrs. Stratton? And then this is the yes.
She said yes. Okay. Passes 5-3. Okay. Did Mrs. Sack, I lost her, where did she? Oh,
Should we wait for her to come back and we record her vote afterwards? Because I mean, she went back.
It passes.
Well, I know it passes.
we took a vote on the physical exams. We took a vote on the physical exams policy, and we didn't get your vote on that, so it was the additional language to pay for the physical exams for the new employees. And so far, the vote is 5-3 in favor. So whatever you say doesn't make a whole lot of difference.
Nobody's staring at you, don't worry.
Well, I'm really undecided, to
All
be
the cool
honest,
kids
because I
voted
missed
for
a lot of
yes.
the discussion heading into that.
Are you abstaining?
Yeah, I'm gonna abstain.
Okay, we have one abstention.
Now you gotta pull out paperwork.
Okay, that motion passes. We're gonna move on then to, it's recommended the board of directors approves.
Dave.
Oh, sorry, go
I
ahead.
was like the crazy person here, so then I misunderstood that, and I'm a no. And I know
Okay, so then it doesn't pass.
we're not gonna discuss it, no, it should still pass.
Oh, you know,
It still passes, but I'm a no, and we already discussed
No,
it.
no, it's dead tied at 4-4.
Oh, so Jasmine has to go. Sorry.
She already abstained.
Oh, what I
Which
missed
one
it,
was?
though.
Are you changing your vote?
Yeah, I misunderstood and then when you were explaining it to her, I realized the way
Okay, so
it
we're
works, because it's not right in front of me.
4-1.
Okay,
Sorry.
motion to reconsider and open for the process of discussion and amendment, so we can do what I talked about earlier, rather than putting this on the agenda for next month. So that needs a second. So the purpose of this is so that somebody would amend it to remove the physical examinations language, so that it can pass, so we don't need to put it on the agenda.
I would like to have the opportunity to explain what we're discussing to Jasmine, since she wasn't present during our previous meetings, so maybe she can go one way or another, and that could possibly just make the whole work out. What we're discussing is whether we would pay for the physical examination of an employee that comes to work for our school district, who's been offered a job, and then we turn around and say, by the way, you have to go get a physical. So whether we want to pay the $62 or $65 as a good employer who wants to stand forward and encourage people to come to work for us, or if we want to be cold-blooded and not
Should
want to
Jim be
encourage.
explaining it to you?
I think it needs to be stated that no districts do that.
And that's why my vote initially would be no, because I've never heard of this before, and I'm a teacher, I'm an educator, and, you know, it's our responsibility, you want your job, so you do your physical.
But the reason I looked at it is I can't see an employer who wants someone to work for them, asking them for them to go get an examination for the right to work. I think that's why Mike looked at it the same way as I did, because if you go for certain places to work, they're not going to make you pay. If you go to work for a contractor, the contractor's going to pay for the examination. If you go to any other place, you're going to pay for it. This is the only type of organization I've ever heard of where the employer then puts it upon the employee to go and get their examination.
Not an organization, it's a system.
It's
not necessary, it's every school district.
Are we an employer? So therefore, as a good employer, that's why I looked at this good employment practices.
I just want to say, sorry, Jim, as an occupational therapist, my employer makes me pay for my physical, my clearances, my first aid, my secret, they make me pay for all of that, so it's not just school districts that do it. And I feel like if you're gonna pay for something, you should pay for the clearances over the physicals, where people might have insurance that will cover a physical, they don't have anything that covers clearances.
But they don't have insurance before they come to work for us, possibly.
They should, according to law.
You don't know what they have.
No, not
so how
anymore,
do you
not
make that
anymore.
decision?
Call for the question.
Yeah, there's no.
You have a question, call the question.
I just don't think it's, practice at this point in our.
It doesn't matter about practice, it's just about changing the time.
My vote would be then no.
Again,
So your vote is no to the amendment? Or no to, so the original.
So it doesn't pass. 5-3, it's 4-5. It's 4-5. 4-5, it doesn't pass. That means we're good.
So wasn't this already closed though? I mean,
No, we came back to get it in a vote.
We're gonna go around back.
With recommendations, so we opened it up for more discussion.
Keep in mind, this is first reading for this particular policy, and therefore this policy could be back on the agenda as first reading at our next board meeting, and it would be in its original form. So we're losing a month on the policy.
It sounds like it's gonna go to its original form, so why don't we just go with that?
Motion to reconsider consistent with what Jim just said.
What he just said.
Which is what contrary requested previously.
So we have a motion to approve for first reading policy as modified, which would be to delete the language associated with paying for the physical through employees. And do we have a second for that motion?
I'm going to start the wrong pen if somebody doesn't second.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
So we have a second. Okay. Any further discussion?
So we're voting to delete that?
In the original form that we were not paying.
We're voting to approve it.
To revert it to the original form that did not include the language relative to it.
So a yes vote supports that, right?
The yes vote now supports it, stands the language for any compensation.
So yes means no payment.
Yes means you're just saying we're going to have our new employees have a medical.
Yes means no payment.
That means we're gonna be mean.
Motion for a roll call.
You
don't even need
People
that.
have insurance and they don't have to pay you to go to the doctor.
Okay, and we'll do this, well, I guess we'll have to go through roll call again too, so all in favor, raise their hand.
Let me just, I mean, it does not technically mean no payment, because that's struck from the, I mean, you can think of it as no payment, but the fact of the matter is it's irrelevant, because it's not.
There is no
it's not-
payment.
It won't say, it'll be mute.
The language is no longer there.
Yeah.
So you're not voting against what you just voted for, it's just like it never existed.
Sort of.
Yeah. What he said.
Sort of, if you can let it go.
We're just getting rid of that.
This is
That we would pay for this, that we would pay.
Let's do roll call. Okay.
Mr. Aaron?
Yes.
Mrs. Keisha?
Yes.
Mrs. Thacker?
Yes.
Mr. Keenan?
Yes.
Dr. Hepburn?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
No.
Dr. McClendon? Mr. Gallo?
No.
Mrs. Stratton?
I'm not gonna change my mind, I promise.
Motion passes 6-3. Oh, yes, so I think that leaves us with the recommendation for the Board of School Directors to approve policies listed in the workshop agenda B through G for first reading. A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Policies for second reading. It's recommended that the board approve items 19H through M on the workshop agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Policies for deletion. It's recommended that the board of directors approve item 19N on the workshop agenda. This is a deletion. A motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Business functions, Mr. Gillo.
It's recommended that the Board of School Directors approve item 20A to E on the workshop agenda.
Okay, wait.
Can I just say that A is the truck that we had talked about, and D is advertising propane vehicles. Or, I'm sorry, advertising for the, not propane. That's a full five. Advertising bids for transportation vehicles.
So can that be amended to be A, B, C, and E?
Yes.
Can you withdraw your motion as a remote?
Are you okay with the trucks being included?
What are we doing?
So A.
So it's A,
Removing D.
A through E minus D. We're not voting on D. Okay. Is there any further discussion about that? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now D. Mr. Dillon, do you want to propose that motion?
Sure, it's recommended that the Board of School Directors, let me get back on the cheat sheet, approves item 20D on the workshop agenda.
And that's advertising bids for transportation vehicles.
Second.
Motion, any discussion? Mr. Hunt, Mr. Hunter, Mr. Aarons.
Last time this came up, this subject I should say, because it wasn't exactly the same, I voted against it because we hadn't had clarity about what we were doing. I, now looking back, think that that was a poor decision. I'm glad it didn't affect the outcome. The reason I think it was a poor decision is because going through the transportation study that the ad hoc committee has and being able to attend a lot of those meetings, it's really clear how important the age of the fleet matters. And it's something that I don't think I respected as much last January when I made this initial decision. And I think irregardless, that's not a word, regardless of what we would do in terms of keeping our current fleet or privatizing our fleet, we need the age of the bus fleet to be as high as it can, or as low as it can be. Oh, not as low as it can be, in order to attract market value for either the sale of the buses or to improve our reimbursement rate from the state. And therefore, I think that the board should approve this. I understand that there's some discomfort about diesel buses. You know, Pat, I appreciate that, and I think you're not the only one who feels that way. I think that it probably is pretty clear that the climate is definitely changing, and there are man-made effects. I think, unfortunately, you know, we have to pick and choose our battles, and you know, with that logic, propane is not going to reduce CO2 emissions by a dramatic level. And by that logic, why wouldn't we go to electric buses? And I just don't think that that's a luxury that we can afford to make policy on at this point. And because of that, I think that we should approve the purchase of, or the bid, the advertisement of the bidding for these buses, which are still going to be diesel.
Any further discussion?
Question, I don't think we're supposed to be going through the debate piece.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
One opposed? Motion carries. I think that's it. Are we, oh yeah, we're in the personnel committee, Mr. Jupina.
I never picked up the papers coming in, so I'm trying to toggle between both agendas. I hope you explained in the meeting before I got here what was going on.
Yeah, we did.
So we didn't all look like morons here, right?
Yeah, can I just reinforce that 21B, and there's a section called guest teachers, and that's going to be separated from your vote.
So it is recommended that the Board of School Directors approve or ratify items 21A, C, E, and F.
No, there's parts of B that we're going to be approving too, but the one section of B that we're not approving is guest teachers. So it would be 21A through F without the item B, guest teachers.
What Dave said.
Yeah. Give a second. Second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Are you voting on everything?
We're not voting on guest teachers right now.
Oh, yeah, I'm on
Yeah.
And then I'll
Okay. And no opposed? Motion carries. Okay, then we could vote on the item of guest teachers.
Recommended the Board of School Directors approve and ratify item 21, part of B, guest teachers, on a workshop agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? One opposed. Motion carries. Thanks, Mr. Jupina. Student functions, Ms. Stroud.
It is recommended that the Board of School Directors approves items 22B through F on the workshop agenda.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. That concludes our voting meeting. Are there any board members who would like to be heard at this time? With a motion to adjourn. And we are adjourned. Thank you.